Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from OurSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Tuesday, January 20th. Indiana is the national champions. They beat Miami 27-21 in a close game. I thought for a lot of that second half, Miami outplayed Indiana. And I thought without the block punt, Miami probably wins that game. Interesting. We're going to talk about that game. We'll talk about how Notre Dame matched up against Miami and how similar it was to Indiana, in my view. And therefore, it kind of speaks to how close Notre Dame is as a program and how good they were in 2025. And then we'll look to 2026 and just kind of, the theme is obviously going to be leave no doubt. And you know how they're going to go about doing that. How are they going to go about fixing some of the things that were wrong with the 2025 team? And hopefully they can be national champions in 2026, because there's going to be a big push for that. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, hit that like button, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. He is Chicago's go-to for the best custom suits, shirts, and sport coats. They have showrooms both downtown Chicago, in Winnetka, and in Winnetka. Book your custom fitting at esqclothing.com. Step into confidence with Chicago's finest. Of course, known for their next-level craftsmanship using the finest fabrics, ESQ has introduced a 100% Pima cotton t-shirt to go along with its award-winning bamboo dress shirt, available for purchase online. Mention ISD at your appointment and use code ISD at checkout to receive 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. So what did you think of the game, Jamie? Were you surprised by that? I picked Miami to win on the Twitters, pretty much for the reasons that the game exactly played out. But like I said, Indiana gets the block punt for a touchdown by accident. They're in punt safe. They get a block punt for a touchdown. And then Miami misses the field goal, and that's minus 10 points. So you go from, being up 3 or whatever it is to losing by 7, right? And a 3-point deficit is obviously what Notre Dame had in the opener in Miami to start the year. So I thought it was kind of what I expected to happen. I don't know if a lot of people expected that or whatever, but I didn't really listen. But that's kind of how I saw it playing out. How did you take in the game last night?
I thought it was. I mean, it played out similar to how I thought it was going to go. Like, I knew they weren't going to be able to block Bain and Messidor. Like, I 100% knew that because no one has blocked them all year. And I knew Indiana's tackles were just like okay.
Mm-hmm.
They were just fine. Like, they weren't probably overrated, really, based on kind of what it's their offensive line really was overrated based on kind of everything that had happened. And it was funny because it played out very similar to how Notre Dame played them offensively. That was Mendoza's lowest time. Fernando Mendoza was his lowest time to throw all season. Like, ball was out. And obviously that was like, first half, Freeman made good points. Marcus Freeman made some good points about like just like the free access and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then when they took that away, then they had to go and they had to throw back shoulder all the time and try to. That was it, because the ball had to be out. Like the ball had to be out. They couldn't sustain against those guys. They weren't going to be able to block those ends. Any kind of like long route that was going to take a long time, like they were getting sacked. And it was like pretty much. It was like 27% pressure to sack ratio too. Like, it was very high. Like whenever he was either like running for his life or getting sacked. Like, and they didn't really do much on offense. They just, I mean, obviously in the first half they dominated third down, right? And they got the key fourth down. The key, the fourth and 5, they scored the touchdown. Um, and I think that was one of the things. Like they won situationally. I thought the refs helped them out a lot. I thought that was something that happened, and it's something that I think that was weirdly like the story of the season is that they had incredible luck. Like I don't want to say like Indiana's a good football team. Like you go undefeated, you make your own luck in a certain sense.
Mm-hmm.
And incredible luck. Like you said, that one, it was a punt safe. The punter drifted too long and to the right and right into
the guy. Yeah.
And then it turns into points, right? And that ultimately and like the situational stuff like cost them. That cost them the game because Miami was better than them in the second half. Absolutely. Like first half, Indiana obviously controlled the game. But it's a weird thing. Like Indiana's the second least penalized team per game this year behind Army. But if you look at like the top 10, 8 of the top 10 are teams from the Big Ten of least penalized, which tells me like Big Ten refs.
Yeah.
And this is why there's no universal officiating. Big Ten refs all it a certain way.
Yeah.
You look at penalties against Penn State, the least amount of penalty yards against Ohio State, second least, Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, like they're all near bottom of like, well, that's not coaching. That's not coaching. It's like, and it's not hard. Sports writers, look this stuff up. CFB stats, it's right there. You can look it up. But I know the narrative is, oh, what a well-coached team. Look how not penalized. No, it's the Big Ten refs, and then in this game, the Big 12 crew weren't calling anything really for a lot. There was a lot of PI going on, which, to be fair, if that was Notre Dame in that situation, I mean, that would completely benefit Notre Dame, like
100%, yeah,
in a lot of ways. But I think there's just things like that that just led to them winning. Or how about the fact that they lost a fumble in week 1? The next 15 games, they never lost a fumble the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Like, how does that happen?
That's just kind of unbelievable. Like how like you said, how does that occur? Like you play all those games, like you don't lose one fumble. And obviously you're putting the ball on the ground.
Yeah.
But it's like popping right to you, Yeah.
It's dumb luck.
Yeah, that's what you need to go on and win a national title, right? Those are some of the things you need. Like you do need, like they got outplayed in the game. Like the post-game win expectancy was 14%. Like,
yeah,
they got outplayed by Miami, like way worse than Notre Dame did, and what is it, the point that I'm making, this is a Notre Dame podcast. This isn't looking nationally or whatever. Like the point of the fact of the matter is like, I think, it was a situation where you look at how good was Notre Dame. And the reason that I went in for Miami before the game was, I think the offensive, especially after the game, the offensive line got crushed, right? Like Emil Wagner got crushed and Anthony Knapp got crushed and like Joe Rudolph stinks and this, that, and the other thing. And then you go look at every other game and it's like, no one was like that against Notre Dame. No, Notre Dame's offensive line, like, they played extremely better against the Texas A&M the next game that they played. And then you look at like Ohio State bludgeoned by Miami's front. You look at Ole Miss, like they were getting their butt kicked, like, but for Trinidad Chambly just doing out of pocket things, right? Like that's how those kind of plays happened and that sort of thing. But like Miami was just they were beating up everybody. They beat up Texas A&M in that offensive line, right? With obviously that Texas A&M offensive line was very good. So I looked at that and I was like, listen, it wasn't a Notre Dame thing. This is Miami thing. Miami's front is different, right? And their offensive line is a little bit different. Now, to Indiana's credit, one thing that they were able to do, and Notre Dame was obviously not, is they went up 10-0 in the first half. They were up by 2 scores, and like Miami's whole thing this year, and you look at every game, it's like they were able to play from out front or not from behind, essentially. And so, when they can play from out front and they can control it and they can just continue to run the ball and they don't have to take risks with Carson Beck, then they're in control. And that's a situation that they like, right?
Yeah.
When they got to that 10-7, it was kind of like, hey, now they started to play Miami's game a little bit. Indiana was like on offense, it became, get a first down here and there, like work for first downs, throw back shoulder to Charlie Becker. Like that was their offense, throwing back shoulder to Charlie Becker over and over again. And like to Charlie Becker's credit, I mean, ball player. I mean, just an absolute ball player. And so, that's why you win national title, because you get a guy like that who's on a heater, and it's just like he makes it happen. Mendoza has the great play to get the 4th and 5 quarterback draw, and he gets into the end zone. I do kind of feel better about the fact that because it was Indiana who won, it had Notre Dame made the playoffs, they would have faced Indiana in the second round in the Rose Bowl. I think Indiana probably beats them. And the reason that I think Indiana probably beats them is they would have made Christian Gray's life very difficult with Becker on the other side of Leonard Moore with Becker. They just would have hit it over and over again. Yeah. And so I think they would end up winning. Go ahead.
But the one thing I'll interject is it is the kind of thing that Christian Gray has shown. You keep going at him and you keep going at him, and then all of a sudden pick 6, or you know what I mean? Like that has been his MO. So I totally agree with you that is what they would have done. But also history suggests that he probably at some point they would have been like, we went to the well one too many times. Like, because that has kind of been the thing with him. Minus Jeremiah Smith, right? And so, and then everybody was no one was covering good in that game. But okay, so this is another thing that really stood out to me in the game. One, I thought Bryant Haynes, Indiana's defensive coordinator, I thought he did a fantastic job. He had a great game plan, and I thought Miami adjusted well to what they were doing, and that's obviously how they got stuff in the second half. But Carson Beck is balls out. That's what he wants to do all the time. This was the opposite side of that. Remember I said Mendoza shortest time to throw. Carson Beck longest time to throw in out of any game this year. And a lot of that was because they ran a ton of drop 8, and like, or they rush 4 all the time. And they weren't getting pressure with 4 or 3. They weren't even getting close most of the time. Right. Like, so, credit to Miami's O-line, but they weren't doing a lot of the stuff that Indiana normally does to kind of like stress protections and stuff, because they knew like that was the thing to really mess with Carson Beck was you got to, if you attack all the time, he might throw it to you every once in a while, but most of the time he's getting the ball out quick and whatever. And that's his thing is like pre-snap, he's winning. But if you are getting out and you're dropping, all of those little like stop routes, they didn't run a lot of good like zone beater stuff until like the second half. And it was like, even then he had to make like some tough throws, like real, like big time throws actually that he made. But Beck played bad for most of the game. I think, second half, he obviously played better, but like he, in that first half was horrible for him. He was like, he had no idea what was going on. even though he had all day, he was only pressured. So even though it was the longest time to throw for him all day, 12% of just dropbacks, like that's insane. Like you should, anytime you get pressure 12% of the time, that quarterback should carve the other team up. Like that, I mean, CJ Carr had a lot of those like 12%, 14%, 16% type of games. And those games were like, he threw for 330, like
Right.
those kind of games, right? So they really had a really good plan to kind of mess with Beck. And I think that was, and they had some answers later on, but it really kind of screwed them up, and it really screwed Beck up because in a way too, you could kind of see where people got mad at like Notre Dame for playing too much zone in the first week. It's like probably wasn't a bad plan. Indiana did it right. It's just that Notre Dame wasn't good at it at that time. Like it got better at it and got better at disguising things and all that kind of stuff later on. But that was something I think that really kind of slowed them down, especially when they couldn't run. Obviously, they ran better in the second half with Fletcher.
Yeah. So like, I thought Beck, it's funny. Like, first of all, it took them a long time to get into their zone beaters, because they couldn't stay on the field in the first half. So they had like 14 plays, like midway through the second quarter, like they couldn't stay on the field. So they couldn't get into any of their stuff. I mean, I thought Beck with time started to, he started to make some plays. I thought the play at the end was, it just got impatient, because
Yeah.
I don't see why he's even looking over there, given that coverage. Kirk said on the show, like on the broadcast, like, oh, he's got the middle safety, so he thinks it's a single high. It's like, it's middle safety, but not middle formation. And like, that's a huge difference. Like single high safeties are usually sitting there middle formation, not sitting there in the middle of the field. Where so like on the hash, he's clearly a hash player. He's clearly a half field player. And then you have the corner sitting outside and playing off coverage, and he sends him inside. Like that's a stop sign. Like you can't even look. And Miami doesn't have any hang player underneath to hold the corner. So you can't even be looking over there. It's a huge mistake. But like Brian Haynes said, like, we're going to play coverage and we're not going to send pressure, and he's going to throw us the ball. And that's what he did. So, credit to him, credit to IU. Like they won the national title. Like every team has things go right for them. Things went right for them. Every time they had an opportunity in a big game, they won the game. They won at Oregon. They beat Ohio State in the
whooped Oregon in the semifinal.
Yeah,
too, right?
I mean they beat Oregon on the road. They beat Ohio State in the Big Ten title game. Then you beat Alabama. Then you beat Oregon, and then you beat Miami. Like there's no flukes in that, right?
Yeah.
So, obviously credit to them.
Yeah.
I mean their ceiling was as high as any team, higher than any team, this year. So they're the deserved champion for sure.
Well, and the other thing is that and I know like people will say, well, look at their schedule in terms of some of these things. Like once you go through the playoff and you play all those teams, and they won the Big Ten championship game, and they literally beat every good team like that they played. Yeah, you can throw out all the non-conference stuff out the window. Then you know what I mean? Like they earned it. Yeah. Like that's they absolutely earned it. And it's just, it is insane to think that Indiana, was like where they're at, and then Kurt Signetti did this in 2 years there.
Yeah.
Obviously there's a lot of like different circumstances without the transfer portal. None of it's obviously happening for them. The fact that Fernando Mendoza turned into like a Heisman winner, he's going to be the #1 pick in the draft, like all that kind of stuff. Like that kind of stuff has to break their way. But if you look at like, I do the thing with like the championship markers, you got to check these boxes. They checked all the boxes. Like they played at an elite level the whole year. So you can't like the only box they didn't check was recruit at an elite level.
Yeah.
which they obviously made up for it and had good enough players. And if you think about, like, they don't have a lot of guys who are going to be high picks. And I think I was reading like Dane Brugler's article. I think it was Dane Brugler's article. Maybe it was the thing with like from Pete Thamel at the on ESPN, or it was one of those places where they talked about how many draftable players that they have, like guys who are draft eligible that are draftable players on the team. And basically Miami had double of what Indiana had. And usually that's a bad sign. Like, you're not going to win. And you can see like guys like Malachi Toney, more talented than anybody on Indiana's team. Like Bane, Messner, more talented. Like, that's, and usually if you have like the three best players or whatever on the field, you're probably going to win. But they still had like an incredible amount of guys who were like first team, second team, third team, all Big Ten. I think they had 11 guys total, or 12 guys. It was 12 guys total who were like first team, second team, third team, all Big Ten. They got pretty good players, even if they're not going to be NFL players, like guys who are stud college players.
Yeah. Rajon said, does Miami's pass rush last night excuse the Notre Dame O-line in September? It's not an excuse. It's just, you kind of understand, right? Like, it was a difficult task. And for some of the part, it held up. I mean, look, they scored 24 points against Miami, and Indiana on offense scored 20, like they performed better in that front than the national champions did, and the Heisman Trophy winner, right?
Yeah.
CJ Carr's numbers exceeded Fernando Mendoza's in his first start ever, so it is what it is, right? It's not an excuse. It's just like, the fact of the matter is Notre Dame performed better on offense than I think people would have given them credit for. And they have to just take that and move it forward. You brought up Bryant Haynes. Like, when I look back on this season, I think that, especially with Notre Dame and contrasted with IU, I just think to myself, like, Bryant Haynes could have left Indiana and stayed, and Al Golden could have left Notre Dame, and he did. Notre Dame lost their defensive coordinator, and Indiana didn't. They brought back everything. And you look like Notre Dame's offense, even though they had a new quarterback and you had a bunch of new pieces there, they were more prepared to play winning football on the first game than Notre Dame was defensively in the first 2 weeks, right? And I think I would put that towards the coordinator change. Like, and this isn't a blame Chris Ash thing or anything. It's just the reality. I don't think Notre Dame is as unprepared defensively. If Al Golden is coming back for I guess it would have been his fourth year with the program. Like, I think that's what cost them, and these are the little things that cost you. In addition to the fact that it was very unfortunate for Chris Ash that the first two games are two playoff teams. Like, who else starts the year with two playoff teams, one of which is on the road? Like, that's not a thing that happened, right? So, that part of it is unfortunate for Notre Dame, but that's kind of how I think about it. And just like, they've got to just carry that momentum into 2026. Paulo mentioned, speaking of Kirk, what did you guys make of Herb Street's handshake with Coach Marcus Freeman after Coach Marcus Freeman explained the team's thoughts and feelings being left out of the playoffs? I thought it was completely disingenuous. I thought it was weak on his part when all he did was lobby against Notre Dame for months. I would honestly, I wouldn't even accepted his handshake. Like, but like, that's why and I would have pointed it out. Like, hey man, like, thank you for the sweet message. You were one of the 4 people who did not want us in this tournament. Obviously that Marcus Freeman did not do that. He comported himself very well, by all accounts. And it was a positive thing that Marcus Freeman did what he did. On Kirk Herbstreit, I thought it was, like I said, disingenuous and bordering on dishonest. And I think Christian said it. I think he said phony. That's kind of my feeling on it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
I mean, I completely agree with that. But I will say, because I know too, because people got mad because Saban said, well, Notre Dame should be in. I know people wanted to pick and choose that, like, he didn't. he had said Notre Dame for months. He was one of the guys who was like, Notre Dame's a top 5 team in the country. He said Notre Dame should be in. Yes, of course he's going to say like Alabama should be in too. Like, yeah, he coached at Alabama for 2 decades. Of course he's going to say that. But he had always spoken highly of Notre Dame. So that I think people's hatred for ESPN and their hatred for Saban and all this kind of stuff gets confused with some of that. Herb Street though is like 100% phony, like all the way. And that was, God, it was pathetic actually.
Yeah.
And but
First of all, it was completely like weird too.
It was
like,
so weird. And
it wasn't such a great comment. That's like, I need to shake your hand. It's like, Jesus, man.
It was not. It was so performative. It was sickening. And I honestly, I bet you through Ohio State circles that he probably heard that Free was pissed.
Yeah.
And was like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Like you're saying this about us? Like, give me a break. And it's I think it's one of those kind of things. And I will say, and I know there's a lot of people who are like, why is Freeman even going on there? Why is he doing this with ESPN? You know why he's doing it? Because those are the guys who are going to talk about Notre Dame all next year. And believe it or not, unfortunately, what they say does have sway over the committee, over just general people. And if they're hyping up how Marcus Freeman's the greatest and how the Notre Dame is whatever, oh, this is happening and Notre Dame's great and all that, that is good. Like, and you going on that show and showing them that like whatever that, and doing all the things he do, he said there, which I thought he did a good job on there. That helps Notre Dame because unfortunately ESPN still has the most influence. It's where people go to see things. It's clips you see, like no shots at any other outlet or whatever, but just like so I don't mean to take a shot at On 3, but I'm just saying like on 3 having JD Pickle and Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman, and they have audiences. I'm not hating on their audiences, but those are minute compared to how many people, whatever. Joel Klatt is minute compared to all the ESPN people. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. So it is winning the public relations thing, which is why it's like, it doesn't really matter to like go on Colin Cowherd. Who cares what Colin Cowherd says about ESPN? No one cares. No one cares about them. But believe it or not, there are people like these athletic directors who are chummy with Kirk Herbstreit and all that. Like that kind of stuff does matter.
I agree with everything you said in that it does matter. I have bad news for Marcus Freeman that next year, if the situation is similar, they will do the exact same thing.
Yeah, probably.
Which is unfortunate. But whatever. It was a good night for him, and he got it was a good PR move, right? He represented himself very well. He didn't come across as bitter. He didn't come across as anything. He broke down plays. He provided good analysis, which you don't really get on a lot of that stuff. Like, frankly, if that's what the show was, like if that's what game day was, if that's what game day tried to be or wanted to be, then it's something that I would watch instead of like what it is, and which is like people hot takes, everything clipped for social media, like a social media product instead of like actually being about the football games. Then it would be a lot more interesting for me personally. But yeah, again, it was a good night. I don't have a big deal about it. I don't think it matters at all. Kirk Herbstreit will do exactly what he did the next time around. Same with everybody else, because the network is the network. And that is what it is. So let's talk about the Notre Dame football team and how they leave no doubt in 2026, because that's what they keep saying. And obviously that was like super super predictable that was going to be the rallying cry for the team and the university and everything. I do think going into next year, when you have your offensive coordinator and your defensive coordinator intact, the questions, and obviously you return your quarterback, the questions that you have going into week 1 are not present, right? And I think that's a huge deal. It's an enormous thing, especially for a team that returns as much as Notre Dame does defensively, their core. Like I said it when they got Francis Brew and Tion Gray to go along with everything else they got in the portal defensively. This is going to be a very difficult team to beat, period, because I don't think they're going to give up a lot of points. I do think they will give up somewhere between 10 and 12 points a game. I really believe that. And so when you talk about leaving no doubt, like that is how you suffocate teams, that is how you don't give them any oxygen, right? And I mean, look at the game last night. Indiana's offense was no great shakes in the first half, but Miami couldn't score. They had no points. When you're not giving up points, anything that you do, 17-0 is a huge lead against a defense like Notre Dame can put out there next year. And so that's kind of my big takeaway. It has nothing to do with Notre Dame's offense. And I want to get to that in a second, specifically the Notre Dame running backs. When you cannot score against a team, then any points that they get are just magnified. And that's kind of how it felt like with Indiana for a lot of this year. I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on
that. Yeah, no, I think that is a huge thing. I think one of the things with Notre Dame, and like obviously the schedule is so different this year,
for sure,
and how it starts, of how what they're going to prepare for.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, it's, even though it's like everyone's playing Wisconsin, and everyone's like, well, Wisconsin's, Notre Dame's going to take the revenge out of Wisconsin. I feel bad for Wisconsin. One thing that sucks about playing that game, I mean, it will be cool at being in Lambeau and all that, they're taking like 30 something guys in the portal. Yeah. It's so many guys you don't know.
You don't know.
And you don't know, and you don't like, how are these guys going to fit and whatever. And it's usually not a good thing. Like, I'm sure Wisconsin wishes they weren't starting with Notre Dame. Like, I'm sure Luke Fickell was hoping that wouldn't be the case, but it's still like a weird thing. That is a hard thing to, there's going to be like a feeling out process in that game to kind of like just figure things out because of who they are. Like, I think that kind of sucks, because you want Notre Dame to be able to like take it to them and like start fast and all of these kind of things. All I could think about when we were chatting yesterday, Greg, about how like talking about Notre Dame leaving no doubt this year, was just basically the performance wise. Yes, I know they could have had like more points here, of like, they got to improve short yardage. They got to do like, because honestly, if they improve short yardage, the offense, that was pretty much the only thing you could really nitpick, was the short yardage problems. The decline there. Everything else, pretty amazing. Like, it was really, really great. That's why they had one of the best offenses in the country. And that's why too they won all these games by like double digits, 20 points, 30 points, whatever. They were killing these teams, and the defense was obviously playing at a super, super high level. But it really just came down to like, yeah, they played the two best teams early, which we had said it was always going to be a big deal, and those two teams ended up making the playoff, and they didn't. Right. And right now, like, the way too early top 25s are pretty much garbage. They're not really, like, I would say, indicative of what, actually is true, like in terms of what, how good these teams actually are going to be. And we don't know.
Right.
But Miami is going to be a top whatever team. They're going to be ranked. Like,
Mhm.
I imagine they're going to get Mensa from Duke. Sure seems like it. I just saw that Damian Wilson, the edge from Missouri, who used to be at Georgia, is a pretty good player. He's going to be there to, like, they're going to spend whatever millions to get him to be the next guy, probably, to try to replace, Bain or Messidor. And they already got guys. So they're still going to be really, really good. BYU, I saw in way too early, top 25, just because I want to get a feel of, like, where people view this. Is like, I saw them, they're like 8th in one and 12th in another. So they could be a top 10 team. SMU is, like, ranked in these early things. Like,
Return the quarterback.
They return the quarterback, 3-year starter. They got a pretty good coach. Rhett Lashley's a pretty good coach. They've done well, like, obviously this year too. They, even if they didn't play as well the year before, they still beat Miami. Like, they're one of the only teams to beat Miami this year.
Right.
So those 3 teams are the teams that kind of stand out as, like, those are probably the biggest games of the year, and Wisconsin because it's the opener and whatever, right? Got to win those games. Have to win those games. Or at the very least go 3-1 in those games, because and go 11-1 overall, if that's the thing, 11-1 or 12-0. That's really the only thing that it comes down to, is you got to go, and it's like you're playing those top teams, and they can point to that and say, well, Notre Dame went on the road and beat Texas A&M to open that season. Because even though they had the stinker against Northern Illinois, well, they did that, right? And that ultimately mattered a lot. Like, that, because if they didn't have that, if they had lost that game, I mean, obviously, if they went 0-2 the year before, they wouldn't even ever have got back into the conversation, even if they won 10 straight. It wouldn't have mattered, right? So win the opener. Hopefully, you beat these other teams. Like Miami, you get them at home. BYU, obviously, that's a road game, but still, like, that is a game. Like, you're going to get a lot of credit for winning that game. Like, those are the games that matter. And that's obviously what matters the most when it comes down to it, when they're not going to play. These SEC teams are going to be overrated. They always, like, because a lot of those teams weren't ranked going into it. And then all of a sudden they just got artificially ranked going higher. They're going to have this tougher strength of schedule. So you have to win those big games that matter.
I mean, I think, like, I first of all, the schedule piece, I'm not listening to any of it, because, and when I say that, I mean from, the media or whoever. I'm not listening to any of that. The national champion beat Oregon, and that's it. Oregon was good. Who else was good? Illinois? Not Penn State. Who else was good? No one else was good. So I'm not trying to hear it. Like, I don't want to hear it.
But they went undefeated.
But they went undefeated. And so for Notre Dame, like, there are some times when it's like, 11-1, it's hard to go undefeated. No. In 2026, they need to be undefeated. They could, losing games with this roster, with this quarterback and this coaching staff, losing games now would be bad. You should not. Now, look, obviously you get in an individual game, maybe something's wrong with CJ Carr, whatever, fine. Okay. We can analyze it there. Going into the season, losing games should not be acceptable. It should not be an acceptable outcome for this specific team to lose with this specific schedule. Your hardest game is at home. Frankly, BYU, they return the quarterback, and that's good. And it will be difficult. I'm not saying that, but Notre Dame, with their roster and their resources and everything that they have, you should not be losing to BYU. Okay. They cannot be losing games. All right. So there's, in my opinion, going into 2026, what's a bad season? Like, 11-1 is acceptable in the sense that it will get you into the playoffs, but this team is too good to be losing games against the schedule that they're playing. I think something that kind of occurred to me yesterday was watching Indiana is, man, those two running backs are very similar to the types of guys that Notre Dame's going to have in 2026. They're very similar to Aeneas Williams. They're very similar to Nolan James. We'll see what's going on with Ge Wang and the freshman coming in. All right, we'll see if there's anything there. But like Javian Osborne's not like the biggest guy or anything like that, right? Like they're both smaller. They're all kind of smaller stature, and they also run very similarly. So I've been kind of like, this running back situation. You know what? Indiana did it with those two backs. Notre Dame's
backs are way better than Indiana's backs.
Right. So Notre Dame
he just got the kid from Boston College, Turbo Richard or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he runs hard, and he'll play against a better offensive line.
Yeah.
But that guy he's not breaking anything.
Yeah.
They didn't get Kenneth Walker.
Right. Here's from Dana Curry. Could Ge Wang and Javian Osborne be the most important keys to running back success? We know Williams is good, but second best is the most important. Thoughts. So I didn't see this question, but it goes into what I'm talking about right now. After watching the game last night and thinking it through, like none of those teams had Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price on it, and none of the teams that beat Notre Dame had anywhere close to those guys. Like you can win games without backs that are all world like Notre Dame had. There are multiple ways to win, especially with the quarterback that you have and the wide receiving core that Notre Dame should have. I'm looking at that and I think, no, Notre Dame has enough to work with at the running back position. They should be fine offensively with the running back crew that they have. And I was thinking about this too. Like I always felt like Nolan James was the closer comp to Kyren Williams.
Yeah, I agree.
Than Aeneas Williams.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because in 2019, Kyren Williams was like, people were talking a lot about him. They liked him, but they played him in the first game. It's like, he's not ready. Didn't show us anything in 2019. 2020, obviously, there's a huge breakout. I'm monitoring the Nolan James going into 2026, like the spring I'm monitoring that situation. I want to see if there's a jump there. Because look, Notre Dame could have taken backs out of the portal and they didn't. I know they feel strongly about Nolan James. I know that. So let's see. My question on offense was like, man, what's this running back room? I think it's going to be absolutely fine. I think it needs to be not only fine, you can win a national title with that room, especially given the rest of the offense.
I agree with that. I don't think like obviously it's impossible to replace Love and Price. You're not going to get exactly that, but like we kind of talked about before, like no one knew that Love and I mean certainly people were excited about their possibilities. No one knew that at the time that Jeremiah Love, before the Texas A&M game in the first game of the season, people were like, this guy's going to be the best back who's ever played at Notre Dame. I didn't hear a lot of that. Like, and I, thought the world of him as a recruit and all that too. But like, you didn't hear that. You also didn't hear like, these guys are going to be the best two. These guys might be the best backfield ever. You have to let it play out. And I think that, there's a lot of that you have to see, because one thing those guys did was develop and get better, like be better backs, get better at the craft of just blocking, running inside, like reading your blocks, all that kind of stuff. And, vision and physically they progress too. So like you said, with Nolan James, that's another thing with Kyren. He got too big for a little bit, slimmed down a bit, and it kind of changed him. And I'm not saying Nolan James has to do the same thing, but I'm just saying that was just a piece of his physical transformation.
Right.
And so where are these other guys at with their physical transformation? And frankly, like Aeneas Williams, like, I don't know if like he averaged 9.1 yards per carry last year. I understand it's mop up duty, garbage time, whatever you want to call it. 9.19 yards per carry is 9.1 yards per carry. He's averaging 7.6 yards per carry for his career. He's got 20 catches for 212 yards in his career. He's averaged 5.98 yards after contact per attempt. He's a good player. Like, he is a good player. And whether or not he can be RB1, the guy carries whatever, I don't care. He can be a guy who helps you win and be a total weapon in the passing game. He is a better receiver than Jeremiah Love. He's not as dynamic, but he's a better natural receiver than Jeremiah Love. He's definitely better than Price in that area. He's probably he's the best since Kyler. Nolan James also has some of that too. Yeah. Like, Nolan James used to be a receiver, was a receiver, moved to running back. So I think there's things there that I'm going to be really interested to see, like what Mike Denbrock does to kind of take advantage of those kind of guys. And also too, like what those freshmen can do and whether or not one of those guys, Walton or Osborne can push. And frankly, like, Keydron Young is just so different than everyone else that I just really want to see where he's at.
I mean, looking at the Indiana backs, like, they both go over 1,000 yards. You play 16 games, right? So basically they run for 70 and 65 yards a game between the two of them. 4.9 yards per carry, 5.6 yards per carry. Like, Notre Dame can't get that. Is that what you're telling me? Like, two guys, they can't get 135 yards a game on 25 carries from, Aeneas Williams and whoever. They can get that. Now, the question is, there is a lot of assuming going on with CJ Carr, right? And I think that's fair. People do get better, right? That's the thing that happens in college football. But, like, he does have to take steps forward, right? Like the silly sacks that he takes, right? The interceptions where it's just kind of like, you don't really need to throw that ball. Like, that needs to go away a little bit, right? Like, there's a lot of conversation last year where it's like, oh, and he's just a freshman. Well, next year he has to, like, be Heisman Trophy caliber. That needs to happen, right? The offensive line needs to take a step. Of course we expect it, 100%, and we should expect it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how it works with quarterbacks. Fernando Mendoza was not ready to do this last year. That's not a thing. No. He went and got better. So, and he needs to be coached and that sort of thing. The offensive line, the fact is that they weren't good enough against Miami, and it's the reason they lost the game. In a large part, the reason they lost the game. So, like, that needs to get better, right? And that needs to get figured out. And there's a lot of configurations there. We don't know what the health of Charles Jagusa is right now. What Will Black, what's his situation? Will Augustine, what's his situation? Do they want to move Gerby Lambert to right tackle and all this other things? So we're making assumptions here that we'll figure it out as the spring starts and we see them and that sort of thing. But I just, like, when you look at it, you have to feel so much better about going into the offseason with this offense, returning everybody on the staff and returning your quarterback and knowing, like, hey, because Notre Dame was championship caliber in 2025. They were. The result is the result. They were championship caliber. You look at all the metrics that there is out there, and it doesn't matter. This has nothing to do with committee anymore. It's just a matter of, like, taking that championship caliber team and moving it forward. And that's kind of where it is. And so, like, I just, everything about when I was watching the game yesterday, like, there was so much. I hated college football for, like, the last 2 months. I mean, this last 2 months was one of the worst experiences of college football that I've ever experienced in my life of following it, because it was like, man, Notre Dame, this is the only time where I felt like, I can't believe they didn't get a chance at this. Like, I can't believe it, and they're talking about, expanding to 16 or expanding to 24, whatever you have to do to ensure that a team the caliber of Notre Dame makes it is what they need to do. That can never happen again. A team of caliber of Notre Dame isn't in the tournament. That can never happen again. Okay. But that is what it is. But I think when I look at Notre Dame and you look at how, okay, the way that Miami played and the way Notre Dame played against Miami and the way that they played a national title game, Notre Dame is championship caliber, right? Take that and go on to 2026. Like, I'm telling you, the way too early stuff. I saw that the odds came out. Notre Dame is like second or third in championship odds and betting markets. That's right, and it's deserved. They should be one of the favorites, especially given what they got in the portal. That's kind of where my mind is at, this morning, and as I was thinking about the game last night.
I'm 100%, like, which is also too why I think, like, I looked at, I think, Stuart Mandel. I just looked at his one because it was like the Athletic, like, way too early, top 25, and Notre Dame was 7, and I was like, 7?
No,
I was like,
that's ridiculous. That is
insane. That is ridiculous. Like, I don't see how that could be. Like, I understand Indiana just won a national championship. Why is Indiana above them, considering what they have coming back? Like, and I know they got some good guys in the portal, but like, really? I don't even know why. Like, and I can totally understand, like, Georgia and Ohio State, and Oregon, because it's like they're kind of in the same boat, right? Of being like, everybody's got their quarterback. There's a lot of, first of all, this is the year, a lot of big time quarterbacks coming back. Texas got Arch coming back. It's a big year for 2027 NFL draft. Although that 2 or 3 of these guys are going to end up sucking, because that's usually how it goes, right? Is that all these hyped guys, rarely do all the guys end up being good. But man, there's a lot of returning quarterbacks this year, and so I get it, it'd be kind of murky, but, like, I don't know, maybe out of sight, out of mind for Mandel or whatever. Like, because I mean, I've seen a lot of other ones, like Notre Dame is top 5, and they should be. They should be top 5, and frankly, I would put them in the top 3.
Oh,
yeah,
Miami and Texas. God, Miami and Texas ahead, like Oregon at 1, bro. It's just so bad. It's so bad. Oregon lost the game by like 100.
Yeah.
They were not competitive in a football game. And it's like, oh, but they bring back the quarterback. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Stuart Mandel doesn't know the sport. He covers the sport and he doesn't know it. And that's unfortunate. I'm sure he's a very nice man. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just, all I'm saying is, like, you cover the sport and you don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
Like you have it's fine. It's fine, Jamie. But that's kind of where I'm at this morning. Like, just but for the first time, like, the sun is up and that's great. It's a very nice sunny day. I just feel like for the first time in the last 2 months, like, I actually feel like, okay, I can now be optimistic and look at this season for what it is. I think they knocked it out of the park in the portal. I think the spring is going to be a great spring in the way, because, like, I don't think they handled last offseason very well. And I think, admittedly, from Marcus Freeman, and I'll give Marcus Freeman credit, like, he is self reflective and introspective, and, like, the mistakes that they made, and it's like, hey, we didn't prepare well enough last year, and he will say that and he will look to correct it. I don't think they handled the offseason as well as they could have. You understand why they did the things they did, but it didn't work for them. And so that is what it is. I think this spring is going to be very competitive there's so many, like, the receivers against the DBs, like that DB room with that receiver room, like, that's going to be exciting, right? Notre Dame's running backs with the offensive line and the spots that are kind of up for grabs on the offensive line and everything, like, that's going to, the new defensive line, like, that's going to be just a great competition. If I had to guess, I would say Notre Dame wouldn't give us a ton of access to that, but it is what it is. So I just, I woke up excited for the first time in 2 months. So that's kind of where I'm at with things.
Yeah, I mean, 2025 officially over, season's over. 2026, I mean, technically it's been like this because, with the portal stuff, basically since Tion Gray signed or whatever, but
Yeah.
it's let's go. Like I'm really excited. I think this is it's weird because it's not like there's a lot of like open spots, like in terms of like, well, this starting job is up for grabs. Nah, but there's a lot of like internal competition with some really, really good, talented players. And frankly, too, like I'm so pumped to see the freshmen.
Yeah.
Like the freshmen, there's too many talented guys there that at least a handful of guys are going to make it known this spring that, they're going to be a factor this year.
Yeah.
And how big a factor, we'll see. But at least a handful of guys will. And sometimes, obviously, that changes. And sometimes not just the fact that Ian Premer is coming in the summer or whatever, but other guys take steps from spring to summer and stuff. And I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah. So it's very exciting time, I think, for the Notre Dame football program, even given the disappointment of last year. So, all right, I think we can end it there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, hit that like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we'll be going live. We'll be back on Thursday with another show talking Notre Dame football, talking about the upcoming season. It's gonna be a good time. So, all right, we'll talk to you on Thursday. Have a good rest of your day. Keep hitting and hustling.